Okay, so many of you out there watching this video will not be able to figure out this basic math problem. Now, you might be saying, well, of course I can solve this problem. Well, I think you could solve this problem if I gave you a calculator or a piece of paper or pencil. But there's a little bit of a twist in this particular problem because all you have to use is your brain. In other words, can you do this problem in your head using just mental calculations? Now, I think you can, especially if you have a strong understanding of basic mathematics. So if you want to go ahead and see how well your mental math calculation skills are, go ahead and figure out the answer to this problem and put that into the comment section. I'll show you the correct answer in just 1 second. And then, of course, I'm going to tell you what I believe is the best approach to answer this problem just using mental math. And this isn't really important because, there's oftentimes situations where you don't have your calculator, you don't have your phone, you don't have any paper or pen. You just want to do some quick calculations in your brain. And if you don't practice that skill, it's like a muscle. Well, you're not going to get better at doing mental math calculations. But anyways, I'm going to get to all of this in just 1 second. But first, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John, and I have been teaching middle and high school math for decades. And it really is my true passion to try to make learning mathematics as easy as possible. So if you need help in math, check out my math help program at tcmathacademy.com. You can find a link to that in the description below. And if you enjoy this content or if you just like this video, well then hit that like button and that subscribe button, as that definitely helps me out. Okay, so just to be clear, what the problem is, we have parentheses, 5 times 4 squared, and parentheses, that divided by 2. What is the answer? Well, let's go ahead and see the correct answer right now. All right, so the right answer is 40. How did you do? Well, if you got this right, we have to celebrate by giving you a nice little happy face, an A plus, a 100%, and multiple stars, so you can brag to your friends and family that indeed you are a certified professional expert in the area of doing mental math calculations. Now, they may not be all that impressed with that information, but here's the deal, okay? If you don't use your brain, okay, just to try to do some basic calculations, all basically by just using your brain alone, then again, it's you're not going to get better at doing this. And you might be saying, well, I don't really care about getting better at doing mental math calculations. Well, you should, okay, because this really does help your brain, your memory, your retention, and just your overall calculation abilities. So it's important, and you never know, there'll be times when you just want to do simple calculations very quickly and you don't want to have the time, or you may not have a piece of paper, pencil, or a calculator available. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at how to do this problem. Now, of course, if you got this answer right and you didn't use any material, okay, no paper, no pencil, no pen, no calculator, well, then guess what? Whatever you did was excellent, okay? So in other words, you got this right. So whatever I tell you is just my take on how to do this problem. But we don't really have too many choices here from a mathematical standpoint because we have to follow what is called, the order of operations. So in mathematics, these things like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and things even like powers are what we call mathematical operations. Okay, these are called mathematical operators. And when you have a problem that has different mathematical operations in it, you have to take the correct order of operations, or you'll end up with different values. Of course, only one value is the correct answer. So what we want to do is review the order of operations. So let me do this real quick with you. Now, the order of operations is, well, you can remember it, the correct order of operations, by following this little acronym called PEMDAS, right? This is how we say this, PEMDAS, P-E-M-D-A-S. And of course, these letters stand for something. And effectively, this is a checklist that goes from left to right. And there's a cute little saying that goes along with this just to help you remember it. It is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Once more, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now, I don't know what Aunt Sally did, but we thank her for her cool little phrase. So let's go ahead and just talk about the correct order of operations because we need to understand this in order to do this problem, okay? All right, so P stands for parentheses. So if we have parentheses, we're going to do whatever's inside parentheses first, okay? There's a little bit of a twist here as I get into this problem, but in general, this is where we're going to start, P. Now, P, these parentheses, are also what we call grouping symbols. So these can be brackets or these kind of squiggly brackets like this. So that's what P stands for. So we're going to be looking for parentheses first. Now E stands for powers. Now you might be saying, well, what? How come it's not a P, it's an E? Well, if I had like 2 to the third power, this little number up here is called the exponent. Okay, this big number down here is called the base. The entire thing is called a power. So really E stands for exponents, but you can kind of think of it, oh, I'm going to do powers next. And you can see in our problem, we have both parentheses and powers. Okay, so as we continue on with our checklist, here is where a lot of people do get confused about the order of operations. So let me just tell you, M, D, A, and S. M stands for multiplication, D is division, A is addition, S is subtraction. Now you would think it's going to be strictly from left to right. You're just going to do all the multiplication and then move on to division, etc. But this is not the way this actually works. So these two here are a group and these two here are a group. So the way the order of operation works is you're going to do, when you get past the P and the E, here you're going to do multiplication or division, whatever you see first from left to right. So if you have multiplication, then division, you're going to do it this way. But if you have division like this, and then multiplication, you're going to do it this way. Same thing with addition and subtraction, whatever you see first from left to right. Okay, so that is the order of our operations, and of course we're going to have to keep this in mind as we do this problem. All right, now obviously we're going to be doing this in our brains, so you already need to have an awareness of this. And by the way, I didn't want to put any time limit on figuring this problem out. In other words, you don't have to do this in 5 or 10 seconds. Just stop, think about it, process information, go through your brain, and review what you need to know. But again, you're going to have to be very disciplined and not reach for that calculator, piece of paper, or pencil. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and take the next step, which of course is to figure out a strategy to solve this mentally, right? Now here, okay, I'm going to suggest the easiest way to look at this problem from a mental standpoint is the following. So I have parentheses 5 times 4 squared and parentheses. This is being divided by 2. This right here, this is a group, okay, in math. In other words, it's a number. So one big value being divided by 2. So effectively, I could look at this as a fraction, and this is going to make this way easier if we look at this as a fraction. So this thing right here, okay, is going to be divided by, now I'm going to have that divided by operator expressed as a fraction bar, okay? So parentheses 5 times 4 squared, I'm going to divide it by 2. Okay, so that'll be my denominator. So when I look at this problem, now of course I'm writing this down. So you might be saying, come on, Mr. YouTube Math Man, you're actually, you're not doing this in your brain. You're writing this stuff down. Well, I'm just showing you from a mental standpoint, you want to think of the problem in these terms. Okay, so in other words, when you look at a problem like this, we're like, all right, this is like a fraction. So this is like my numerator, okay, in your brain. And this is my denominator. So in other words, mentally, try to have the mental picture that this thing represents, this problem is equivalent to this problem. And this is going to make things a lot easier. So if you can kind of hold this image in your head, then I'm going to show you exactly how easy it is to do this problem. So let's go ahead and take the next step, which of course is to have you subscribe to my YouTube channel. So here's the deal, right? I wouldn't ask you or interrupt our train of thought here if it wasn't that important. Now, it's important for me personally, yes, but it's really important for me to help others. Okay, so by you doing this, it helps that YouTube algorithm, well, it basically helps me find more people like yourself that might be interested in math. And specifically, what I'm looking for is to find people who are struggling in math or want to learn math and are having frustrations because the worst thing in the world, at least for me, is to see people give up on math when they don't have to, okay? And unfortunately, this happens all the time. If you want to be successful in math, I'm going to tell you right now, there are no shortcuts. Okay, no shortcuts, number one. But number two, if you're struggling in math, probably the reason why you are struggling is you're not getting adequate instruction. Okay, you need encouragement, but most importantly, you need clear and understandable and comprehensive instruction. And that's what I try to deliver. So, anyways, by you subscribing, it does help me find those people in need. If you're going to subscribe, you might as well hit that notification bell as well so you can get my latest videos. Okay, so let's get back to the problem. So we talked about how we want to envision what's going on in this way as a fraction. Okay. All right, so you're saying, all right, if I gave you the problem this way, 5 times 4 squared over 2, we have to kind of think, all right, well, what do I need to do next? Well, we do have to follow the order of operations. So I'm focused in here where the parentheses are at. Okay, so I have 5 times 4 squared. So in my brain, I need to take one step. All right, so let's just look at PEMDAS here real quick. So, okay, P parentheses, so I'm focused in just right here. Okay. Now, again, you can just stare at this problem, so you don't have to remember there's a 2 down here. In other words, you could just look at the problem and do the calculations in your head. So are like, all right, I got parentheses. Do I have any powers? Yes, I do. 4 squared is what? 4 times 4, which of course is 16. So now in your brain, you're like, all right, this is now 5 times 16, parentheses 5 times 16, divided by 2. And this is where this is going to become quite easy to do. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the next step here. So we have 5 times 16 divided by 2. Now, because we set this up as a fraction, all right, what we can actually do is kind of remove these parentheses. So some of you might be saying, wait, you're not allowed to do that. Well, yes, you can. I don't need to group these numbers together because this is a product, this is multiplication. When you use parentheses in math, it's extremely important to do this when you have sums and differences. Okay, in other words, like 7 minus 9, this is a difference. You want to put things like that in parentheses, or 7 plus 9. You want to put sums and differences in parentheses. That's really vital. But when you have multiplication, it's not necessary. Okay, now I'm not saying you don't want to do it. There's nothing wrong with the way it's written like this, but from a mathematical standpoint, we can just think of this problem this way. Okay, so 5 times 16 over 2 is equivalent to parentheses 5 times 16 over 2. Now, if I write the problem like so, this is going to make it much more difficult if you say to yourself, well, I got to do 5 times 16 in my brain. That is going to be a little bit, difficult to do, right? You might be saying, this is the part that really is going to mess me up because now I have to calculate this answer, and kind of go through all this mental gyrations, hold that in my head, and then divide that by 2. That's not the best approach to do this problem. Okay, now from a mental standpoint, again, we don't have any calculator, pen, or pencil. So what you want to do is like, all right, I got this right here, and let me just get rid of these here. And what I have is a fraction. Okay, so this is now my factors up here, my numerator, 5 times 16 over 2. And now, because you are a professional expert in fractions, you can look at this 16, all right? And now some of you are going to be better at this than others, but what we're talking about here is cross-canceling, okay? We have a 2 here and a 16 here. So 2 goes into 16, 8, okay? And that's going to leave us with 5 times 8 to do. So in terms of, there's only one operation here to get the right answer, 5 times 8, which of course is 40. But what is going on here, right? So let's be very clear about this. Let me break this down just to kind of really show you what's going on with these factors. And I'll do it right here real fast. So let's suppose I have 20 over 30, okay? Now, hopefully all of you could say, oh yes, this fraction, if I reduce this, is the same thing as 2 thirds, and that would be correct. But technically what's going on is you look at these numbers here that make up our numerator and denominator, you're looking at the factors, right? So in other words, 20 is the same thing as 2 times 10, and 30 is the same thing as 3 times 10, okay? And here, these are factors. These are separated by multiplication, just like our situation right here. And here we have like factors. So the rule in math when you have fractions, if you have like factors, one factor, that same factor that's in the numerator is also in the denominator, you could cross cancel those, and what is left is the simplified result. Okay, so for example, 20 over 30 is equal to 2/3 because 20 is the same thing as 2 times 10, and 30 is the same thing as 3 times 10. These 10s are like factors. I could cross cancel them, and there you go. All right, so now that you know that, we can kind of look at this problem this way. So 16 is the same thing as 2 times 8. Now, you don't have to look at 16 and, oh, that's 2 times 8, because now I have a 2 here and a 2 here. I could cross cancel, and I'm left with what? Just a 5, and the 16, of course, is going to go away because 16 is the same thing as 2 times 8. A 5 and an 8, and then 5 times 8, of course, is 40. So, depending on how you were taught fractions way back in the good old days, oftentimes, most of you should be familiar with the idea of cross canceling, right? So, I have a 16 here. Can this number go into this number or this number? Yes, it can. 2 goes into 16, 8. So, 5 times 8, of course, is 40. Now, that is the best approach, in my opinion. If you figure this out in a different way, as long as you used your brain to follow the rules and got the right answer, then that is fantastic as well. Now, let's just take a look at the longer approach, right? So some of you might have said, all right, 5 times 16, what is this? Well, if you're able to mentally calculate that as 80 and then divide that by 2, you're going to get the same answer as 40, right? Even if you work within the parentheses. Now, that's great if you just knew 5 times 16 was 80. Now let's just take a look real fast just for kind of the mental fun of it. 5 times 16, how can we calculate that? Well, let me give you a little kind of bonus tip here. 5 times 16, what you could do is think of this as using the distributive property. Okay, so here is another little lovely math hack here for you. So 5 times 16, I could write it this way in uh, 5 times 16, I can use the multiplication operator, or I can use these parentheses like this. This means 5 times 16. Now, what I'm going to do, matter of fact, let me write this way, is mentally you can break up 16, 5 times 16, you can break up this 16 into as many different numbers as you want. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So 5 parentheses, let's break up 16 in this way. 10 plus 6, okay? So 10 plus 6 is in fact 16, right? So 5 times 10 plus 6 is 16. Now, why is this interesting? Well, let's think of this problem, 5 times 16. So in your brain, you're like, all right, well, 16 is the same thing as 10 plus 6. Now, what you can do is from a distributive property standpoint, and this is a really powerful property in mathematics, and it's another way to do multiplication. I can take this 5 and multiply it by that 10. So what's that equal to? 5 times 10, that's super easy to do mentally. That's 50 plus, and I take this 5 and multiply it by this 6, and 5 times 6 is 30, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, 50 and 30, that is 80. Okay, so 5 times 16. If you can't figure it out this way, just break it up, okay? Or you could break it up this way. Let's just look at this fun way. 16, I could write as 8 plus 8, okay? So you're like, oh, wait, 5 times 8, that's 40, and then this is going to be the same answer. 40 and 40 is 80, okay? And then 80 divided by 2 is 40. All right, so whatever approach you took, if you got this right, that is fantastic. And if you didn't get this right, I'm pretty sure you understand how to do this problem. And it's probably because you're just not, challenging yourself with these fun little problems. And mental calculations are they absolutely critical and necessary? Well, I don't know if I'm going to go as far as saying, yes, you must know how to do this, but they're very good for your mental processing. Okay, the more of this you do, the sharper I think your brain is going to get, and you just never know. Okay, you want to be able to have confidence in doing some basic mathematics in your brain. All right, now if you need help or you want to review basic math skills and you've been away from math for some time, let me give you a suggestion. First of all, I have a ton of additional videos like this on my YouTube channel, but I have a great little math boot camp, if you will. It's a 3-chapter mini course. It's called my Math Foundations course. You'll find a link to it in the description below, but basically it's going to go through and reteach you all that stuff that you forgot way back in the good old days. I'm talking about place value, decimals, basic math operations, fractions, order of operations, etc. So if you want to kind of review math, or if you want to start building your math skills up, that is the course to start with. All right, so with all that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.